Hello everybody, video here for today. This is the retro no cap recap of The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch Season 1 Episode 1 called Bad Things Happen When You Dig, aired March 31st, 2020. If you missed any of my Skinwalker Ranch recaps, there's a link in the upper right to that playlist. Skinwalker Ranch has been a center for UFO and paranormal activity for 200 years. Television cameras have never been allowed on the property until now. Outside of this fence, and Dr. Travis Taylor running after being called to witness something. This dead cow is the first thing shown. Dr. Taylor recommends not touching it until they check for radioactivity, to which one of the ranch caretakers says, "Too late." The group already turned it over looking for a sign of injury and found none. There are also no tracks near it. The other ranch caretaker saw the cow alive during the late morning. Not at the cow itself, but approximately 6 feet away, two different Geiger counters keep going up to a high of 18, then falling back down to 0 repeatedly. A spectrum analyzer also picks up high spikes of activity. Dr. Taylor suggests they vacate the area for safety reasons. Flashback to 12 weeks earlier in Salt Lake City, and 154-mile northwest drive from the ranch, the team gathers for a meeting with ranch owner Brandon Fugel, who bought it in 2016. Dr. Travis Taylor is a physicist and scientist who has more than 25 years' experience in the aerospace and defense industry, working with NASA, the Department of Defense, and the intelligence community. He has degrees in electrical engineering, aerospace engineering, astronomy, physics, and optical sciences, and was asked to join the team to investigate Skinwalker Ranch. Dr. Taylor had previously made appearances on the Curse of Oak Island with an astroarchaeological theory based on the constellation of Taurus. On his proposed layout on the island, large boulders were found at 2 of the star locations, and a third was the original spot of the Stone Triangle. At the time of the show, there was no access to the Fred Nolan property to check the other locations. Ranch owner Brandon Fugel arrives and introduces principal investigator Eric Bard, scientist Dr. Jim Segala, ranch superintendent Thomas Winterton, ranch manager Jim Morse, and head of security Bryant Dragon Arnold. Brandon says this is the most unique science project of its kind, and they have verified and documented unexplained events that have occurred over the past few decades, if not hundreds of years, on the property. Dr. Taylor says it sounds exciting and maybe even a little bit scary. In a camera talk segment at a different time, Brandon Fugel says he is the owner and chairman of the largest commercial real estate enterprise in Utah. He is also a co-founder and investor in other enterprises involving technology. He grew up middle class with a very strong religious upbringing that has only strengthened his belief that there is more to human existence than meets the eye. He thinks that Skinwalker Ranch is a place where some of the great questions of the universe may be answered, or at least better understood. Dr. Taylor asks where the name came from and is told that the Native Americans have a tradition of shape-shifting demonic entities called skinwalkers that take the form of a werewolf, among other things. They say that the ranch is the path of the skinwalker, and they call the mesa that runs the expanse of the property Skinwalker Ridge. As far as the earliest recorded history of the property, homesteading begins in 1905. The first newspaper article, which is about strange noises, is published in 1911. In 1915, early accounts of mutilations and visitations are documented per Indian tribal lands and the U.S. government. From 1915 to 1937, there are various owners, including the Locke family. By 1979, a lot of UFO sightings had been reported. This particular newspaper article was published in September 1976. There have been multiple cases of acute medical episodes, including nausea, perception altering experiences, vertigo, and temporary paralysis. The Sherman family acquired the ranch in 1992 and witnessed some of the most disturbing events on record. There were daytime cattle mutilations with surgical precision, drained of their blood, but no blood was on them or near them. 25% of the herd was lost. They also reported UFO sightings and malevolent influences, but these are not explained further. The reports by the Sherman family led billionaire Robert Bigelow to buy the ranch in 1996. From 1996 to 2002, his company, National Institute for Discovery Science, or NIDS, investigated, and then that eventually became Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Space Studies, funded by the U.S. government. Brandon says that many of the professionals involved refused to set foot on the ranch ever again. After Brandon became owner, one of the first things his team captured was a 500-foot section of the mesa becoming illuminated. Also notable, several instances of columns of light that appeared above the mesa. And this UFO traveling at above modern craft speeds. No commercial air traffic in the area corresponded to it. Dr. Taylor asked why they want him involved, and Dr. Segala says that as an experimentalist, he would bring much more stringent protocols to the operation than currently exist. Eric chimes in that they want his perspective. Thomas says that the ranch seems to react when new people arrive. The next day, Dr. Taylor is helicoptered to the ranch and given an air tour by Cameron Fugel. This is the front gate with accompanying barriers and signage. Just beyond is a guard shack. Dr. Taylor says that the land itself doesn't look any different from the properties around it. This is the area of Skinwalker Ridge that was glowing. Cameron doesn't like to fly over the mesa. This is Homestead 1 and Homestead 2. Homestead 3 is on the western side. Brandon says in a talking head chat that a lot of the unusual activity takes place around the 100-plus-year-old homesteads. Dr. Taylor is introduced to Caleb Bench by Dragon, who says that Caleb is his right-hand man. Dragon explains to the camera that the reason they take security so seriously is to protect the scientific integrity of things happening on the ranch, as well as to protect those on the ranch. A lot of people try to sneak onto the ranch. They carry guns due to the natural elements like wild animals, as well as the unknown. Dr. Taylor is shown the command center, and Eric takes him in the control room that he says is a work in progress. Eric also says the first phase of the operation is observational science to document any phenomena. Dr. Taylor calls shotgun on the driving tour of the ranch. He's first shown the fenced areas for cattle from back when the Shermans owned the ranch. This is where Mr. Sherman shot a wolf that had stuck his head between the bars to try to pull a calf out. 6 point-blank shots from a .357 did not make the wolf drop the calf, but 2 shots from a .30-06 rifle did. The wolf ran away and was pursued to the river/creek on the property. The Shermans saw tracks in the mud on the near side and far side of the water, but the tracks stopped after that with no sign of the wolf. The story is told again on the show in season 5, if not before. Next is the mesa. Eric adds that it didn't just glow, it appeared to pulsate. At the base, Dr. Taylor checks his compass. which seems to be working fine, but Eric's tri-field EMF meter was picking up microwaves that were nearing dangerous levels. The direction they were coming from kept changing. It also seemed to get stronger the higher Dr. Taylor held it, so he decided to walk up the mesa, and at the top, the waves got even stronger and was still changing direction. At one point, two different people were pointing meters in opposite directions, and both of them were maxing out. Dr. Taylor explained that there were no cell towers or Wi-Fi routers or anything else close by, and readings that high do not occur in nature. He goes on to say that he has been on the ranch for an hour and already something is happening that he doesn't understand. Back in the command center, Dr. Taylor asked for 50 tri-field meters to put in various areas of the ranch so any detections can be recorded. He also asked for a complete sweep of the radiation spectrum over the entire ranch. That reminds Thomas that the Uinta Basin in which the ranch sits was a hotspot for the downwind coming from the Manhattan Project test site 200 miles away from 1945 through the 1950s above-ground nuclear tests. Some of the highest levels were measured 30 miles north of the ranch. Dr. Taylor says that the decay products from those tests are known and documented really well, so they should definitely follow up on that, because radioactive fallout could definitely cause some of the medical issues people on the ranch have had. He wants to look for gamma, alpha, beta, and particle waves and radon. Dr. Taylor also wants to dig, but due to previous experiences with disturbing the ground on the ranch, Dragon says if Dr. Taylor is going to be a part of this, there has to be no digging. Thomas says he has dug on the ranch after being advised not to, and a few days later he got what he describes as a goose egg on the back of his head, and it spread, separating his scalp from his skull. Doctors could not explain what happened and in fact said it should be medically impossible. Dr. Segala says he would be up for digging because he wants to trigger something and sees it more as an invitation than a warning. Dragon relents and says if the owner of the property signs off on it, he will as well. Eric gets Brandon via video conferencing, and after being updated says he also is hesitant to dig. Brandon then reveals that there is additional information that Dr. Taylor and perhaps other members of the team have not been briefed on. Brandon gives Eric permission to reveal it to the team. He gets a box from the control room and says, I think you'll understand as soon as I open this. He opens it and the episode ends. I'm No Cap recapping new Season 5 episodes late Tuesday nights as they air this summer and early fall, and we'll retro recap the earlier seasons as well as retro recapping The Curse of Oak Island, Season 6 through 8 as I have time. All of the other episodes are already done and are in my Oak Island playlist. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, like, and comment.